Hey, and welcome to another episode of my tutorial series on AWS Amplify Serverless Stack, where we'll build an end-to-end application using AWS Amplify and AWS CDK. Before we get started, if you're new to the series, maybe consider to start with part 1, as this is a continuation of stacks that we created in earlier episodes. And if you're a returning watcher, thank you for watching. That being said, not all of you are at the moment subscribed. So if you like the content and you want to see more of this, please consider to like and subscribe, as it would help me out a lot. And let's get on to the agenda. So the goal of this video will be to reach two goals. First, we will want to upload images to S3 for both authenticated and unauthenticated users. The authenticated users will be the authenticated users from the Cognito pool that we created in some episodes back. And the unauthenticated user will be the IAM role that we grant for guest users. And the guest users will also be able to create an API call, as our Stripe payment is behind an API call, and we want both people with an account and people who don't have an account to be able to make payments. So to reach these goals, we will have to change and adjust some values in the storage stack, in the Cognito stack, and finally we will add some code in the Amplify project itself. So with that being said, let's get started and let's open the storage stack to make some adjustments. So I opened the storage stack that we made about 2 episodes back, and inside of the lib we have the construct for our S3 bucket, and we'll be adjusting that construct just a little so that we can upload our images from the front end that we have. And I will be adding a couple things. Not all of the things that I add are necessary, but let's first start with what we need. So I will add the course, and with course we can decide the origin that will allow to make HTTP put requests in this case. If you want to do GET requests or other requests, you should add them in allowed methods. And in the allowed origins, I will be putting the domain of my website. So in my case, it will be www.printhelix.com. And well, maybe just let's do it. And then you can see that for yourself. So origins gonna be a string array because I want to put in multiple strings. Then here, let's put in the origins. So my origins will be https www.printhelix.com, and it will also be https printhelix.com. And from these origins, I will allow my bucket to be reached. So props.s3.origins. So these are from these origins you can make a put request, and I will also allow all headers. And I will add some extra things to the bucket, and you don't need to add this, but I will explain what it exactly does. So transfer acceleration, I will set it to true, and if you are actually using it within one region, maybe you should not put it on. It will incur extra cost. But if you are using cross-regional uploads, then transfer acceleration will greatly accelerate the upload speed of uploading items onto the S3 bucket. And then something that I'm actually not using, but I just want to show you that you can also add a lifecycle to your bucket, meaning that you can say when a document expires, so after a document, or in my case an image, has been uploaded to the S3 bucket, it will expire, meaning it will be deleted in 15 days, but you can of course configure it to your liking. And you can also make it transition for, in my case, it's going to an infrequent access S3 bucket, after 14 days. You do have to transition it before you expire it, or else there's nothing to transition. So I'm actually not using this right now. Maybe I'll be using it at some point, because you don't want to compile just images and documents endlessly, unless you want to save them forever, of course. But else you can add a lifecycle rule just to clean the bucket up whenever the documents are not needed anymore. So adjust this how you like, and I will save this. For now, I will just deploy it with all these changes. And once again, if you don't need the transfer acceleration, don't put it on. It will incur extra cost. And you also don't really need this, but it is nice to keep it tidy. So let's deploy this, and let's move on to the Cognito stack. And there we will do another couple changes to the roles so that we can actually do the front-end actions. So I opened up the Cognito stack that we created about 2 episodes ago. And here we will make a couple changes, because here we have the roles that we'll be using, both the authenticated and the unauthenticated role. We'll be making some changes there, but we will also be making some changes in the post sign-up trigger lambda that we created, as this was creating a directory inside of the S3 bucket, but we actually don't need that, I found out. So we will be removing that as well. But let's first add the new roles, and then later we can clean up what was not necessary. And this has become a really long file. So just to make it a bit nicer, I will be making the changes in a separate folder. So here, services, and there I will paste in some new code. And let's see. I will be removing all of the policies and roles that we currently have, and then we will be creating them with the new files that I just added. It will just be a little bit better to keep the overview of it. So this will all be going to here, and then we'll use the new code to create both the roles and both the policies. And then we'll go over what's inside of these files. Key. So we just replaced all of the roles and the policies that were here, and we're now creating them with these files. So let's first have a look at what's inside of the role, and then we'll move on to the authenticated and the unauthenticated policies. So inside of the role, we are expecting a name, an identity pool reference, and a state. And the state in this case is either authenticated or unauthenticated. And we are creating a role with the role name. Then it will be assumed by the federated principle of Cognito identity. And if the user that's currently attempting it is logged in with Cognito, it will assume an identity from the identity pool. And if it's not currently logged in with the Cognito identity, it will assume the unauthenticated role and assume that to make calls. So the S3 bucket call, but also the GraphQL call, will both be made from the unauthenticated role, whereas the signed in user will use the authenticated role to make the upload to S3. So this is the role. That's what we are using. We're returning the role. So here we get 2 roles back. First one is the authenticated role, and then we have the unauthenticated role. So now we have 2 roles. What we need now is to add the policies. And let's first start with the authenticated policy. So in the authenticated policy, we take a couple parameters. We take the bucket. We take the bucket key. So that's the KMS key. That's encrypting the bucket objects. and we're taking the role that we just created, which in this case is the authenticated role, as this is the authenticated roles policy. First thing that we'll add is the S3 put object. So you might have noticed in the last stack that we adjusted, I was only putting the put HTTP method as a possibility. So here as well, I will only allow the action put object. And the next part is a little bit important. So what we're doing here is the bucket ARN, and then we append it with private. And the reason why I'm using private is that this is the default prefix that you get added by Amplify when you will see it when we do it. But this is when you're logged in and you upload the picture to S3 with Amplify, we will get a private prefix. And then we want the Cognito identity for the sub, and it can only put it in that directory. So this will be something else because this is a dynamic value, and I will demonstrate it later as well. So this allows a user to only put pictures in their own directory, which is their ID. That's linked to their Cognito sub. That's how we should see it. So if you want to do a get or list, then you can add it here. But don't forget to add it in the previous stack in the S3's course options. Then, as I said, we're also using KMS. And KMS, we're using it to encrypt the pictures. And we need to give the role also the KMS generate data key ability. And that's used to generate the key to encrypt the image, so it can be stored inside of the S3 bucket. And then we are attaching both of these policies, so two policies here, one for the KMS, one for the S3 bucket, and we'll be attaching both of them to the authenticated role. So then that is the authenticated role, so that's this one. We have these three. Let's go on to the unauthenticated role, which might be the interesting one at this point. So in the unauthenticated role, we'll be adding three policies, and third one is actually just for GraphQL. First one is pretty much the same. We have a put object for S3, but the resource is a little bit different. So if we compare it to the authenticated role, you can see that when you're authenticated, you go to a private directory into your own subdirectory. And when you're an anonymous user, so you're a guest, it will be put inside of public, and inside of that directory, the images of all guest users will be placed. Then we will also be adding KMS generate data key for this user, as it also needs to encrypt the images before sending it in. And finally, because we also want the guest users to be able to make payments, so it'd be nice, of course, we're adding the GraphQL query for the payment intent. And if you watched a couple episodes back, I think 2 episodes back, we made the GraphQL API. And in the GraphQL API, I'm using this query to get the payment intent back. So if you're using a different API and you have different naming, it will not be payment intent, but you just need to get the ARN, so with your own AppSync ID, and then eventually it has some values, and then you go to the field that you want to get. So that's what we're doing here. So with this, the unauthenticated user will have abilities to put objects into S3 inside of the public directory. It can use the KMS key to generate a data key for decrypting an image before putting it into S3. And it will be able to call the AppSync API. And by calling the AppSync API, it will get the payment intent back, and it can make a payment. So we'll be attaching 3 of these policies to the unauthenticated role. And with that, so if we go back, we are complete. And once again, if you want to add more permissions, for example, you want to do a list or you want to do a get or something else, to consider to add the HTTP methods in the previous stack. And now that we have all of this, we won't make any changes here, but we will make some changes to the pre-sign-up, post-sign-up trigger. A post-sign-up trigger doesn't need to do anything with the S3 bucket anymore. So we will be removing the S3 bucket here. You can also remove it from here, from the environment variable. And then inside of the function itself, a couple things that I also removed is that I am not putting in the username anymore, any of these. So there is no more bucket. And we're gonna remove the client. And I'm removing most of these things, as there's no need to actually save them in DynamoDB, as we already have them inside of the Cognito directory, and we don't need to duplicate information that's sensitive. So that's why I've been removing most of these out of my own stack, and maybe you should do that as well. So let's see. That's all gone. And this was expecting, let's see, account ID, account name. I think that's it, and I wanted to add one more thing, I think. Let's see, now that we have the table, I'm also gonna add, for the table entry, I'm gonna add an orders array, and I'm adding this because we added in previous thing as well, I think, because when we're making the changes, we're gonna append each of our orders that the customer has to this array. So it's nice to already have it there, or else we cannot append to it. Well, this function is still expecting a couple things. We have the table intent here. Let's see, so we're not expecting these anymore. We're expecting an email, and we're expecting an account ID. An account ID will be the sub. So when the user has signed up, it will get a unique ID, which is the sub, which is an account ID. And I will also store the email just to make it easy to search for customers inside of my database. And I don't want too much sensitive information in there, so we will keep it to minimum. So we will only have the sub and the email, and the rest of these values we already have them in Cognito, so it's not advised to actually put them in DynamoDB. So with that, we also cleaned up the post sign-up trigger, and it will not make a directory anymore inside of the S3 bucket. Doing any other changes? I don't think so. Then I will save this and deploy this as well. And after that, we will make the final changes inside of our Amplify project, where we will both make the API call to get the payment intent and make payment. I've showed this in the last episode when we were adding the step function, and we could only make payment with the authenticated user, but this time we will make one with authenticated user, and we will make one with an unauthenticated user. And in both cases, some of the images that were stored, that were inside of the order, will be stored inside of the S3 bucket, where the authenticated user will have their images stored inside of their own subdirectory, which is inside of the private, and the unauthenticated user will have their images stored inside of the public subdirectory of the S3 bucket. So let's move on to the other stack, and let's see what we'll need to do to achieve our goal. Now I've opened my project up for the Amplify frontend, and I will go through the changes that I made to make the unauthenticated user also be able to make calls. So I will go to payments. And in the previous episode, I already went through this page a little bit. And that time we were making only authenticated calls. And this time we will make also some unauthenticated calls. But first, let's go through a couple things. So inside of this page, I'm making the calls to both the S3 bucket and to GraphQL AppSync to get the payment intent, which is a Stripe key to make the payment. So I have a designs upload function, which uses a UUID, and it checks if I am currently an authenticated user. If I'm authenticated, it will set the level, which is a property of the S3 upload, to either private or public. And if it's private, it will be uploaded like I showed before, inside of the S3 bucket and then in the subdirectory public, and it will just be in there. If it's private, it will be in a private subdirectory of that specific user. So it will have the identity of the identity pool appended to it. That was assumed through the Cognito identity. And we'll get there in a bit. So I am uploading all of the pictures here, and this function gets called inside of the get payment intent. And also here I am checking whether I am authenticated or not. If I am authenticated, I want to run the AppSync GraphQL in a Cognito user pool mode. And if I am not authenticated, I want to use the IAM mode. And when doing the IAM mode, so this is why we just gave the unauthenticated IAM user the permissions to call this AppSync GraphQL API. As you can see, the query that we are calling is the payment intent. So that's corresponding with the permission that we just gave. We are also adding the authentication mode into the API call, so it will know whether to use the Cognito identity or the IAM identity. And when using this, you of course have to have configured your AWS config, and you need to have your so both of the identity pool and the Cognito pool identities, you need to have them inside of your config. And if you have that, you also need the S3 bucket, and you can add the S3 bucket by going into the console in the Amplify backend and then attaching the S3 bucket there. So if you haven't done that, also do that. So you have the config for the S3 bucket as well. And if you have all of those configs, then with this, you can make the API call. But let's dive a little bit deeper in what code you need to make the S3 uploads. So this is my utility file, and here I am using a couple functions to make the upload, and I will go through them, and you might not need all of them, but it's maybe nice for you as well to know. So what I'm doing is uploading the S3 images, and after I have uploaded them, I will put the S3 keys inside of the order so that the order can reference the images that are actually inside of the S3 bucket. And as we said, we have access level, which is either private or public. And So I have a couple of functions, and the first one is upload to S3, and this uploads the images to S3. So what do we actually need? From the storage API that we're getting from Amplify, we're gonna await the put request. There we're gonna put the file name. So this is only the name, which is generated for me with the UUID. We're putting the file in there. And from there, you actually don't need to put anything in there. But if you do want to put in, you can put in a level. And a level in my case will be either, like I said, private or public. And these are the options. And you also have another option like protected, I think, which is your image, but can also be seen by others. And private is only by you. So then we have a content type, which is also optional, but I will be adding the content type. And finally, the use acceleration endpoint, as I said, that will incur extra cost, but it does speed up the upload if you, for example, are in Ireland and you have all your stack in Ireland, and someone from, I don't know, China or something wants to upload an image, it will actually help. But if you only have customers inside of the same region, then you should maybe not use it. So then after uploading, we will receive a key. And one thing to note is, so this will be the key, but you won't have the prefix in here immediately. So what I'm doing then is defining the prefix that I will have. So the prefix that's in front of the key, like I said, will be the identity of the Cognito user, but it will not be the sub. So the Cognito user will assume an identity from the identity pool, and this will give it an identity that is not the sub number, but it's a different number. And we will retrieve that before saving the order. So if the level was private, we are expecting that there is an identity. So we will use the auth API from Amplify, and we will get the current user credentials. And inside of the current user credentials, there is an identity ID. And identity ID is the assumed identity in this case for the authenticated user. So our full key for S3 will be private / the identity ID / the key, and which I then upload to DynamoDB, which I will demonstrate in a bit. So after we have that, we will, I will in my case, after I've uploaded the images to S3, I will return the key, and then I will upload the key then to, in this case, with the order. It will be inside of the order, and it will be stored inside of my DynamoDB table. So my DynamoDB table will have a reference to the S3 keys, and so it will also be stored in, of course, two DynamoDB tables, orders table and the customer table, and the customer can then retrieve its orders. So that's actually all we need to do in the front end. And now I will demonstrate both authenticated and unauthenticated process, and we'll have a look inside of the account to see what we get. I've opened up my console so we can have a look at my databases where we expect the orders to come in. So let's explore the items inside of the table. And we see that there currently are no orders inside of the orders table. The stocks table also doesn't have anything. And if we look inside of the users table, we see that I have a single user, which is myself. So let's continue with the demonstration, and let's see how it will affect. And before we go there as well, in the S3 bucket, we see that there currently is nothing in there. And let's go to the website and create an order. So I will go here and press design. And I will add the picture here, my own face, and then I will add it here. So then when I press this button, currently I am not logged in, maybe just to clarify. See, I'm currently not logged in, so I'm an anonymous user. And we're expecting that after I make a purchase now, that I will be able to get a response back and a form will appear. And after completing the form, one of my orders should be inside of the orders table, noted as anonymous. So I'm gonna do that now. Then I will fill this in and skip a little bit forward to where the payment is successful. So I successfully made a payment to myself, and now we can see that the order was completed. We have a transaction ID, which will be one of the IDs I can look up the order in, and a message that we are currently processing it, and it will go on and so on. So with that, let's go now back to the database and see what we have there, and also what do we have in the S3 bucket. So this was our user, which should not have anything added because it was an anonymous user. That's okay. Then we're gonna go to the orders table, and here it can take a second until we see the order appear here. And while we're waiting on this, let's go to the S3 bucket and see what we will find there. And as we were using unauthenticated user, we were expecting it to be in the public folder. And as we can see inside of the public folder, we do have an image, and with the corresponding front as it was added to the front. And it can always take a second until this table shows the item that's actually in there. So I will refresh it now. So currently it's saying there is no order in there, but maybe it's because, maybe I was a bit hasty because, of course, in last episode we made the step function so that it waits a couple seconds before it's actually processing the order, so that we know that the payment's actually made already. So then let's try it again. Explore the table. And there we have it. That's our order. And there's an order ID. And it also says that account anonymous, as we were expecting. And it has some things in it. So it has the price, it has the products, the email of the recipient, and the address and stuff, which I won't be showing now, but it is in there. So we have our orders table now with an anonymous user, and we have nothing in here. So now let's go back to the website and then make an order as a user that's logged in, and then we will expect that the order will be appended here in the orders table, and we will have some images in the S3 bucket, but now it will be in the private, and it will be prefixed with our Cognito identity pool ID. So now we're going here. Now we're going to sign in. I'm going to sign in with my Google account. And now I'm logged in. As you can see that I'm logged in at the moment. We're going to make the exact same order. So let's place another order with my face on it. And then we add it to the cart. And when I press this button, we again expect that the order will be sent. This image will be uploaded to the S3. And then after processing, we will have the order in the orders table. So again, I will skip a little bit forward so that I don't put any address information up. And after the payment is done, we will have a look at the tables again. So again, I made a successful payment to myself. And we can see again that we have a transaction ID and the order was completed. So this time we're expecting that the images have been saved inside of the bucket under private, and also here we should have the order appended here. So let's see if this time, first let's have a look at whether this is done or not. Okay, so it currently, we still have the step function running. So after the step function is finished, we're expecting in the finalize step that it will be added into the table. And if it's added into the table, we should also be seeing it in the front end. But that will be the last thing I will be showing in the video. So just a moment. And we are waiting a couple seconds here. So from the top of my head, we're waiting 1 minute, maybe more. I don't know, actually. I have to check in the code again. But because not everyone is as fast as paying, of course, and we don't want to check while there has not been any payment. But now waiting, maybe it could be faster. So while this is doing its thing, we'll wait that out for a second. But we should already have the images inside of the S3 bucket. So let's have a look there. And so we currently have only public. I will refresh it, and we're expecting to also have a private directory here. And there it is. We have a private directory. And if we click on it, you can see that here we have well, this is an identity, and it's in EU West 1. And if you would look inside of your Cognito identity pool, you would see that this is one of the identities that's in there. And every time that this user logs in and it wants to upload images or get the images from S3, it will assume this role or this identity with this Cognito identity, which will enable him to access this folder. And if we click on the folder, here we have again the image that we uploaded. So it's the front image as we uploaded it on the front. So there you have it. We have both the public and private images. So both an authenticated and an unauthenticated person can actually make an order and upload images, in my case, to S3 and make a call to the AppSync API. So in the meantime, we have a successful step function. So after we update this, I'm hoping that we can see the order in there as well. And there we have it. We have our order here. And just to check it out, you can see that we have some information here. And I have the product, and let's see the S3 key. And here we have the S3 key. So just as it corresponds to the location of the picture, we have private, we have the region with the Cognito Identity Pool ID. Then we have a UUID with the name of the location, and that's the image name. So there you have it. We have the one for the authenticated user, and this one I think it should also be visible by now. Yeah, so we have one with the anonymous user, and we have one with the authenticated user. And this is the sub of the user. So here I can see all of the things I need to see in order to fulfill the order. So there you have it. We've been over the flow with the authenticated user and the unauthenticated user. And if we go here, then you see that I have an order now. This is the order that we just put in. So the user can also use the GraphQL API, of course, to retrieve the orders. And with that, I want to end the video for now. In the next video, I think we'll be looking at adding some CloudWatch metrics, a dashboard, and maybe some alarms to keep us notified of what's going on our platform. And if you liked the video and you learned something maybe, then consider to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.